5, 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. We have a liftoff. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
It's been over half a century since the last time astronauts set foot on the moon. Our previous lunar landing mission was Apollo 17 in December 1972. But since then, why haven't we sent anyone back to the moon? This is a question we all ask ourselves. Was the whole moon landing faked, and NASA got busted and had to cover its tracks with classified intel? Perhaps there is much more to the story. Or did the United States of America get scared because of the massive cost to taxpayer dollars and the risks associated with safely transporting astronauts 384,000 kilons to the moon and back remained extremely high? These were all the questions popping into our heads. Even with technological advances, the expenses were still huge and could not be justified compared to missions with more tangible scientific or political gains. While robotic probes have continually studied the moon from orbit and the surface, our astronauts have been limited to low Earth orbit since the final Apollo program. However, new ambitious initiatives like the Artemis program are renewing our optimism that we may once again embark on voyages to establish a sustained presence on the lunar surface in the coming years. But before this, what went wrong? It's no secret that the Americans and the Soviet Union have always been in a constant race for world power, and in 1961, the Soviet Union seemed to have an edge, becoming the first country to launch a shuttle into space for exploration. Some months earlier, the American president, J.F. Kennedy, declared a national goal of landing someone on the moon, and with the Soviets ahead, the Americans took this as a game, and the race to land someone on the moon for the first time started. The Americans won this race with Neil Armstrong being part of the Apollo 11 mission in 1969. Over the next few years, the Americans went on 6 more trips, of which 5 were successful, and this led to the success of 12 astronauts having their footprints on the moon. But in a time far behind in technology, soon the Americans discovered trips to the moon don't come cheap, and their last trip came with Apollo 17 in 1972. With the race for space exploration finally won, the American public and taxpayers' enthusiasm dried up, and so did NASA's budget. There came more urgent matters such as war and politics, and with the ongoing Vietnam War, the American government curtailed its budget and spending, and another moon mission was just too expensive. At the same time, NASA got its sights on new projects, shifting attention from previous ones as they began to fund programs like the Space Shuttle program and eventually the International Space Station. Those long-term programs needed tons of sustained funding, which meant fewer resources left over for executing extra Apollo missions to the moon. Plus, the NASA administrator at the time, James Fletcher, wanted the agency to do more cost-effective stuff, so he moved away from using expendable mega-rockets like the Saturn V that were needed for moon landings. By the mid-1970s, most of the infrastructure for supporting Apollo launches had been dismantled anyway. Basically, after Apollo 11 landed on the moon, NASA didn't see much reason to justify the huge effort and expense of repeat missions. Their perspective was, we did it. It's time to move on to other priorities with our limited budget. Although it was the first to land its citizens on the moon, it gave the US geopolitical leadership and added to its scientific knowledge. The Apollo missions brought back lunar samples and data that vastly expanded our understanding of the moon's geology, history, and environment. But now, Artemis missions in the 2020s aim to finally send astronauts back to the lunar surface using modern technology. The moon is a region of untapped resources, and like the law of the jungle, the strongest get to rule. And now, With the Mars missions on the way, the Americans are aiming to dominate the space once more. The question remains for some people as to whether the United States reached the moon or not. There is much evidence that indicates that it has already reached the moon, and now. The US is setting new goals to dominate outer space. But that will not come easy as the rising powers challenge each other to control the resources of space. In the race for space dominance, major players like the United States, Russia, China, Japan, Europe and India are fervently pushing the boundaries of exploration, technological innovation and national prestige. These countries are investing substantial resources in space programs, from satellite launches and lunar missions to ambitious plans for crewed Mars exploration. The competition extends beyond scientific achievements to strategic military interests and economic advantages. As each nation strives to secure a prominent position in space, concerns arise about the potential for arms races and geopolitical tensions. Will this pursuit of dominance lead to collaborative efforts, fostering a shared vision for humanity's future in space, or will it exacerbate international rivalries, raising the specter of a space-based arms race? The answer to this open question holds profound implications for the trajectory of space exploration and its impact on global relations.